There's a lot that got inspired within me during the conversations that we had today. Some questions that I even forgot that I had, and another story from my childhood.
You want it to happen again?
Yeah.
If you do, tell it. If you don't, let's move on.
So when I was young, I had a bad habit of suckling my thumb, and it proceeded to, like, when I was older, past the acceptable age, and my parents said, if you quit, he will give you anything that you want. And it was like a really, like a crutch that I was like self-soothing every night. And so
before you go further, we want to hear it. So your parents were doing what so many people who are teaching you do. They're wanting you to calibrate to their desire for you. They've decided what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And they're not thinking about the soothing, because hardly anybody understands the value of self-soothing. And so that's how people learn to calibrate to what other humans want, by seeing the rewards that are being offered at pleasing them rather than following your own sense of soothing. That was such a good example in the way you laid it out, that really good opportunity to see how easy it is to replace your own guidance system with what others want you to do.
I think I saw their point. Like, I wanted to quit, but it was kind of like such a strong pull that it was like similar to like people smoking, that like it was such a bad crutch. But anyways, they told me that I could have whatever I wanted, and I wanted a cat so badly. And so every night I would go to bed and thinking about playing with this kitten instead of suckling on my thumb. And I made it to like 10 days, and I broke the habit. And that's when we realized that we're moving to Canada, and I couldn't have my cat. And then when we moved into a pet-free building. And not only that, I had a cat allergy. But imagine, for like a week, I was focused on just this, like playing with this
this story sounds like it's got some good stuff in it.
It does.
But it's also got some stuff in it that you carry with you for a long time, and something that your inner being really wants you to focus on, and that is, you can't count on anybody. Take it easy. They couldn't even keep the promise. They were well-meaning.
But even like, because I realized that like I had this cat allergy, I was like, oh no, I will not, even like when I move out, will I be able to have a cat? Until I was in my 30s, and I found out that there's such a thing as immunotherapy for allergies, and I could have shots and I could get my cat.
But you see, this is such a complicated story.
But for me...
And it has so many twists and turns in it, as you're doing what Esther is doing, in trying to make the story fit with the conclusion that you've come to.
Okay.
In other words, instead of soothing yourself, you let them trick you. Take it easy. And then you tricked yourself into not even be able to get a cat for a while because you moved. And then the unfairness continued still further. In other words, we're just saying that what we want you to take away from that is that it was always in your power to soothe yourself. Mm-hmm. Either by suckling your thumb or having a cat. But when somehow you've been convinced that it's wrong to soothe is what you took away from that, which meant even the promise that they gave you that was going to replace that couldn't come to you because it's wrong to soothe. We know you haven't looked at it that way before.
No, I always saw it that like that I wasn't focusing on the circumstances of the reality. I was literally just going to bed and thinking about my cat.
So thinking about the cat was soothing. So you soothed yourself with the thought of something.
Visualizing.
What happened when you realized, how did you feel, and for how long did you feel, when you realized that you were going to move so you couldn't get the cat? What happened then? Can you remember that part of the story?
They told me that we can get a cat in Canada.
So
but
then
that
what
was
happened
not
when you
true.
got to Canada? In other words, this is the story that others who are trying to get you to calibrate to them always tell you. They tell you, if you keep these rules, you'll be blessed. And if you break these rules, you'll be punished. And then when you watch with your own eyes, it not turning out the way they all say it's going to be, then they say, oh, you can't tell in this lifetime. You have to wait until the afterlife. So when you croak, you'll get your cat, so to speak. You have lovely parents, and we're not pushing against them at all, but this was such a wonderful opportunity to demonstrate how, because it's a big question in the room. We hear it all the time, whether you speak it or just offer it to us with your thoughts. Abraham, if this is all so easy, why aren't we all just having an easier time of it? If we were pure positive energy before we came into these bodies, why isn't it easier to accept our guidance system and follow it? And the answer to that question, the most often is biggest asked question of all. The answer to that question is because you have learned by the strength and intensity of those who surround you, who seek to control an environment. They don't want you to be past the, what were the words you used? The appropriate age? Past the appropriate age. The appropriate age. The appropriate age. That falls back on inappropriate parents. Don't you think that's what they thought? In other words, we need you to do something different so that we can be. And so where does that chain of pain start? It starts with not understanding, not resonating, not calibrating to the source within you. So we never let anybody get too far down the rabbit hole telling us a story about something that is full of false premises without coming back to this whole story is about how you came to know about your own guidance system, and that soothing is the name of the game. Isn't this interesting? This whole thing started with you just wanting to do what all these years later we're begging you, not really, to do. We think that's a fascinating unfolding. Maybe the best conversation we've ever had.
I have one more question. So you say that when we're happy, we're in alignment. Would that be a true statement?
Well, it's variable, and what's happy to one may not be happy to another. It's all relative. So how would you define, or how would you find a word that says when you feel some relief and you feel a little better, that's moving in the direction? In other words, we can't even find the ultimate alignment. We use the word love because it's the purest vibrational state of being that you use with a word to define it. But so many people use the word love and they're nowhere near the vibrational frequency of it when they use it. We really like the word appreciation because it's usually cleaner when you're appreciating something that's such a close vibrational proximity to love. But there are people that will say, I'm happy, when they're really not happy by your standards, but they're happy by their standards. Everything's relative to what they're reaching for. That's why your guidance systems are not across the board. Your guidance system is the calibration, it's the variance, it's the blending or not, it's the allowing or resisting of your frequency as it relates to the frequency of your inner being.
Mm-hmm. So when people take drugs, either pharmaceutical or recreational, and they feel happy, would you say that that's like fake alignment, or is it like partial
What we would
alignment?
really say is that you cannot determine the happiness of another, because you really can't know how they felt before they did or how they felt when they do. You only know it for yourself. And so if you're asking the question, then you know the answer.
It depends on the person.
We would say that a feeling of relief is on the path to happiness. And so if someone's really in a place of so much tension and having trended so long in calibration against their alignment, then sometimes, like going to sleep or like meditating, anything that distracts you from focusing can give you that relief, because in the de-emphasis of being able to focus, which is mostly what most drugs like that do, then there is a release of tension, because you're not consciously or in a really definitive way contradicting what your inner being knows to be. And so when you let go of that, then you come into alignment. But it's not lasting, because it's not a trending that you practice deliberately.
And the side effects are the resistance squirting through.
Side effects often produce more things to push against. There isn't anything that replaces your emotional guidance system and your decision to find a thought that feels better, find a thought that feels better, find a thought that feels better, find a thought that feels better. And if you can't find a thought that feels better, and Esther couldn't find a thought that felt better about those projectors. She had too much momentum going. She needed to be right about her theory, which means she cared more about being right than she did about feeling good. Well, if you've got yourself in one of those quagmires, then drugs might be the answer in the moment. Or a nap, or meditating, or launching another rocket of desire, or remembering how the universe works. We never stop talking about another way that you can feel a little better. Asking It Is Given book has 22 processes in it, and we've offered several since then. And every process, without exception, is to assist you in releasing some resistance. Because we know for sure, if your cork is floating, which means you have non-resistance, that's what we call pure positive emotion. That's where love and exhilaration and appreciation are. You can hold that cork under the water, and let's call that negative emotion. Let's call it resistance. But when you stop doing that thing you're doing that is holding the cork under the water, it will bob right back to the surface. There's no process that we teach you that says you're going to push the cork back up to the surface, because it will naturally go if you're not doing that thing. So maybe the drugs cause you, someone, to defocus and therefore de-emphasize, and for a period of time deactivate the thought that was holding the cork under the water. But since it wasn't something that was consciously acknowledged, when you think a thought and you notice that you feel this way, and you think a thought and you notice you feel this way, and you deliberately pay attention and practice contouring your thoughts, not to fix things, but for the singular reason that it just feels better, which is the reason that people do drugs. Nobody says, I'm going to go get addicted to something that's going to cost me a lot of money and maybe put me in jail. That's not the reason that anybody does it. Everybody does it because they believe in the doing of it that they will feel better. That's what we're talking about. You're trying to find some way to feel better. And the drugs aren't wrong. It might have been the path of least resistance. It just isn't sustaining, and after a while, you sort of figure that out. Sort of like you figured out that you had a method that was soothing you, and somebody said, shouldn't take that drug. Get that drug out of your mouth. Get it out of your mouth now. I'll give you a cat if you'll take that drug out of your mouth. So you said, okay, where's the cat? Well, it'll be a little while. No, really, take that drug out of your mouth. We'll give you a cat as soon as we get to Canada. Where's the cat? Well, it's going to be a little while. Pretty clear, huh? Yes. Really good time for a segment of the session.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and see you in the next video.